Hello, good people. Thank you so much for being here on the MonaLogues today. And for our last episode, we are going to talk about starting over. I think that is kind of like it is a bit ironic that we talk about starting over when we are actually ending. But I find that endings and beginnings sort of are always intertwined. So after 13 episodes of the very first season of Life at Mona, and as we are closing off this season, starting over, I think, is a good way to wrap it up, because then we can kind of like all look at our journeys, the different journeys that we've had with things that have started in our lives and things that have ended, and most importantly, how we have merged our transitions. So for me, I think one of the biggest starting overs of my life was when I was going to campus for the first time in the States. And at the time, I was going to International Christian Center on Mombasa Road. And I remember the very last service that I had, because I was very active in the church, in the youth, in drama and dancing. And so, all the pastors, we were such an active group that all the pastors knew us. So on my very last day, they called me onto stage, and all the leaders came, and they said a prayer for me, and they said a blessing for me. And then the pastors gave me a gift of a book, The Alchemist. So I had read The Alchemist before, but I'd read it in French. So clearly there are some things that kind of passed me by. But I had read the book, so I knew what the book was about. So when I was on the plane, that was my reading material on the plane. And just to give you a small brief of this book, The Alchemist is about a shepherd boy called Santiago. And one day when he's taking care of his sheep, he falls asleep under a tree in a church. He falls asleep under a tree in a church. And he dreams of this treasure that's in Egypt, near the pyramids of Egypt. So he decides that he's going to go to Egypt to look for this pyramid. To look for the treasure. He decides he's going to look for the treasure in Egypt. So he sells his sheep. It takes him a while to make this decision, because he's like, I'm not suffering, I'm comfortable. Why am I giving up what I have been doing comfortably to cross the world to look for treasure that I don't even know is there? But then he meets an older man who tells him, actually, you know what, this prophecy is true. And you have to be true to your personal legend. So he sells his sheep and he gets onto a boat which takes him to Northern Africa. So Tangier, Northern Africa. So when he gets there, he's actually mugged and all his money is stolen. So now he's stranded. So in order for him to get by, he starts looking for a job, and he finds a job in this crystal shop. And he thinks he's just going to be there for a short time, maybe a month, 2 months, to get enough money so he can go back home. But he ends up there for 11 months, partly because he kept on saying, okay, fine, I'm making good money here. Let me make more money. He kept on meeting different people. The owner of the crystal shop was also encouraging him to stay. So 11 months go by. And right now, by this point, he has made so much money. He's thinking, let me go home and buy more sheep. I can do that, or I can continue on into Egypt. And to help him make this decision, a customer comes into the shop. And this customer is also on his way to his personal legend. And he tells him how he's following his dream, he's following his legend. So Santiago is inspired, and he decides to go to Egypt. So on his way to Egypt, when they finally get to Egypt, they are stranded on this oasis because there's a war that has broken out. And so he can't get to the pyramids. So he has to stay at this oasis for a while. And as he waits out the war. And somewhere there, he meets a woman who he falls in love with called Fatima. And he also meets a man who is actually the alchemist. And an alchemist is somebody who can turn any metal to gold. So he meets the alchemist, and the alchemist starts teaching him about life and the different things, the different ways that you can improve your life with. This book is beautifully written. And all these little nuggets and all these life lessons that the boy learns. And finally, the alchemist tells him that he's actually going to leave the oasis and he's going towards the pyramids. So Santiago decides to go with him and crosses the desert with the alchemist. And at some point, they go their separate ways. So Santiago proceeds to the pyramids, and the alchemist, goes on his own way. So when he gets to the pyramids, he digs and he digs and he digs and he digs for this gold, and there is nothing. And then at some point, just when he's about to give up, he hears one of these, they're like warlords there, and he hears one of these people saying that he had a dream that there was treasure in a church far away under a certain tree. And he had a dream that there's treasure that's buried there. Now, Santiago realizes this is the same church where he had the dream that there's a treasure in Egypt. So he makes his way back. And when he digs under that tree, he finds the treasure. So he asks, throughout this period, Santiago has been talking to what he's calling the soul of the wind, which is the equivalent of God. And this wind always talks to him and speaks to him. So when he gets there, he's asking the soul of the wind, which is like God, if my treasure was here under the tree where you showed me that there was a treasure, why did you take me all the way to Egypt? Why couldn't you just show me that the treasure was here? And God, the soul, tells him, if I'd just shown you that the treasure was here, then you wouldn't have seen the pyramids. And I just thought that's such a beautiful story, because I think it's a lot about, it's almost exactly what we go through as people when we're questing towards a dream. I didn't know this when I was reading The Alchemist on the plane, but that was to be my journey as I was following my dream. The thing of, you think you've finally reached, you've sold everything, you've left your home, you've left your comfort, and you're going somewhere else because you think that's where your treasure is. In my case, it was to study, communication, writing and film, and to get my dream together as a writer, as a filmmaker, as an artist. And that's what I was going to America to do, to follow my dream. And when I got there, actually the first hiccup, which turned out not to be a hiccup, was that my suitcases, I used British Airways. So my suitcases remained in London because the turnover time for the plane was not enough. So they left some bags behind. So we get to America and we are told by British Airways customer representatives that your suitcases are in London, but they're going to come tomorrow. And there's a whole bunch of us. So all these people are making noise and, complaining. Me, I'm fresh in the States. I'm like, I don't want to cause any trouble. Let me just stand here and wait to see. And then they tell us, but to compensate you, you're going to get $300. I'm a student. You've just arrived in America. You're going to give me $300? I'm looking around at these guys complaining, wondering, what's wrong with you? $300. I said, I'll take it. Where do I sign? Quickly. I signed. They gave me my money. The American dream was alive and well. Took my money. And the next day, as promised, they said before midnight. And this guy actually arrived like 11:55 with my suitcase. Awesome. So the rest of the journey, I had so many different incidences happening and pitfalls and good things and bad things. The biggest struggle for me was affording the fees for the university where I was to go to Tampa, Florida. So at some point, I actually had to leave America and go to the UK and then wait it out a little bit and come back, because if I didn't do that, I'd have been out of status. Because the rule was, if you arrive to school and you've not attended school, I think it was in 3 months, you have to leave or you're out of status. So I had to leave and come back the next semester now when we had the money, when my family had put together the money. And in those 3 months, again, for me, that was like Santiago being stuck in the crystal shop, working in the crystal shop to just try and get his way out. So I did that, came back, studied for a while again, and still had to leave because the scholarship that we're waiting for didn't come through. So I ended up in the UK, because in the UK you could work and study at the same time. And I did this for about 5 years. And in those 5 years, just like Santiago, again, still working in this crystal shop, it was like you get comfortable, because you're studying, you're working, you get comfortable. And then you start thinking of, okay, maybe I should change my visa status and now just work here full time. I was working in a shop selling sports equipment. And it's so far from what my dream is, so far, like there's no relation whatsoever. But because you've been there for so long, your mind starts telling you that this is the way to do it. And at some point, just when I was thinking, okay, I'm going to do this for a while, put money together and then maybe go back to Kenya or something and write, there was a day which I think I had just had it consistently. I was just getting more and more and more tired of this job, which was like, it's monotonous. You take the money, you put it in through, you give the guy the change, and your change is 10 pounds, sir. Thank you very much. Come back again another day. Would you like a credit note with that? Would you want to return that, sir? You say this over and over again, like it's monotonous. And the day I realized I am done was we had to arrange the shop, and we had to like pick up hats from the floor, because I don't know what was wrong with these people. You come to look at a hat. If you don't like it, put it back. No, they threw them on the floor. Okay, so at the end of the day, you have to come, pick the hats, put them back. You come, you pick the gloves, you put them up. You come, you put the merchandise back up again. And on this day, I'd done this like 10 times, because you're not supposed to leave the shop floor in a mess. And I picked up a hat and put it back, and some kid rushed and hat dropped. And I just thought, I can't do it. And I think that was the point that I knew I am done with my crystal shop. I have to move forward. So Fast forward, I come back home to Kenya. At this point, I was married. Story for another day. I come back home to Kenya, and then I realize, like, ironically enough, my dream, my treasure was in Kenya all along. The treasure, the dream to become a filmmaker, the dream to write books that I could publish, the dream to tell my stories, it was in Kenya all along. And like Santiago, I would ask God then, if my dream was here all along, why did you take me all the way to America via the UK, via working in shops, via not affording school fees? What did I need to do all that for? And the thing is, I needed to see the pyramids. And in my case, the pyramids is a different exposure. You learn different things. I was an extra at some point when I was in the UK. And just being on set, I mean, other extras would come and just sit in the bus and go on their phones. With me, I was interested, I was always trying to see how close can I get to the action to see what's going on? Who can I talk to find out, how exactly this filming works? And I picked up quite a lot of things from that. And even just being in the States and doing theater and dance as a minor, I picked up a lot of stuff from that. And I think a lot of what I'm doing now is influenced by what I learned and the exposure that I got when I was out there for those 5-6 years. So, and that doesn't mean that when I landed in Kenya, suddenly, things were just working. They were not, and it's been 8 years now on this journey, and I'm still on the journey. But I know I can now look out and say, yes, I understand that this is where my treasure is, and I'll keep digging and keep working for it. How does this relate with starting over? This relates with starting over because I think in our journeys of life, we start over again and again and again and again as we progress towards the things that we say we want and the things that are our dreams. It's a constant action that we have to do. And we have to realize when it is time to start over, and we have to realize how to do it, and we have to realize the things to let go, the things to hold on to, the things to take with us, the things to remove from our lives in order for us to get to the next step. And that is why today we are speaking with Pete Odera. Pete Odera is a pastor. Pete Odera has been, when I met him, he was a musician. That was like way back in the day. And today he's here with us. He's going to be talking to us about starting over. And I know that he is somebody who has experienced this, not just in his own life, but with all the other people that he has inspired and been a counselor to. So he's going to take us through how do we do this? How do we transition in a way that is wholesome to us and in the way that builds us and doesn't hold us back? And that's our topic this week on Life with Mona. So we're going to jump into that this week. And I know you'll be here with us as we learn and as we grow and as we finish off this season well. Thank you so much for being here. These are the MonaLogues, and you're watching Life with Mona.